Welcome into Shaping Reality. I'm your host, Kimberly, and I'm joined by the ever insightful Penny Kelly. Penny, how are you doing tonight?
Hi, I'm great. I hope everybody out there is doing well. And thank you
Yeah.
for so.
Yeah. We have so much to talk about tonight. At least I have so much to talk about. So I'm hoping that you'll hang with me and answer all my questions.
Okay.
We're going to be dealing tonight with the look-see from December and kind of addressing some of the topics that Penny brought up in the look-see. The first one I want to talk about is the Nitwits and their green energy plan. I mean, does anybody listen to Al Gore or Tony Blair or any of these guys? I personally don't listen to them, but you had mentioned that it kind of does give us an opportunity or welcome us in to start thinking about things differently. Can you share more about that?
Oh my gosh, yes. I think if you just I love your term, the nitwits. If you're just listening to the nitwits, it's really a boring, awful, stressful kind of subject.
And
But
we're always the problem.
oh,
It's never their jets.
that's right. That's oh my God, that is so true. So so what I started doing, and I can't remember the guy's name. He was an Indian fellow, and he had created I think it was called the 5 hour energy drink.
I know him. I love his work.
I know,
Yeah,
I
he's
know,
fabulous.
unbelievable. And he's working right here in Michigan. And and so I thought, oh wow, he's engineering some stuff that is really, really powerful. But the thing that caught my eye or my ear, both actually, was his statement that he was wanting to provide solar energy that you just took with you
Yeah.
anywhere. And that just really caught my eye. It was like, why are we paying these big companies a fortune to have energy when we could buy a solar thingy, hook it up to the house? Of course, I can't because my house is the size of 6 houses, but still, there's options.
Well, we know why we can't.
Why?
Because it takes away the profits from the big energy companies.
Oh,
We're not gonna let that happen.
okay,
Sure.
yeah. Okay, so, well, if you want to just kind of go around that,
Mhm.
and say, "I'm sorry, I'm putting some money into a small solar generator." I went ahead and did that. I thought, okay, I'm going to buy a solar generator. It's a small thing. I got a Jackery 1000, I think it is, sitting right here because somebody was just asking me about it.
I have the
Um,
same one.
yeah, and the solar panels to go with it. And that thing is so handy. We live in a rural place and power goes out from time to time. And when it does, I just plug my computer into the Jackery. And as long as the internet is still going, I'm fine. So, yeah, that is, then we ended up remodeling our chicken coop. So, and then I ended up putting new electric here to the building, 400 amp service. And in the process of all of that change and reworking, it was like we cut the line from the chicken coop to the power supply and thought, well, we'll replace that later. And then I started thinking, why should we do that? Why not just hook up a solar thing?
Mhm.
And and the chickens will be fine. They'll have heated water in the winter. So that's what started it all. And over time, what became clear is that the green energy thing, which I don't think is going very far, very fast, even though they're pretending, um, they what I see is it's this amazing opportunity to remodel your entire mindset about your house
Yeah.
and where you get your power
Mhm.
and how you live and et cetera, et cetera. And so from when I look at the East Coast of the US and I look at the infrastructure over there, oh, it's so crowded, number one. The pipes, the water pipes are so bad that I don't know how people can drink that stuff. I mean, everything about the roads are too narrow for cars. A lot of people don't even have cars because there's no place to put them. People are stacked up, one layer on top of the next for 30 stories tall. I'm looking at that and thinking, I think I forget, I think there's 3.8 million square miles in the US, and there's 330 million people. So that's about 100 people, I think, per square mile. If you look at 1 square mile, it's 640 acres. So 100 people, that would be 6.4 acres per
Each.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a family of 4 can survive on 5 acres. Everything they need in terms of food, clothing, shelter, water, trees, lumber, all of that. They might have to deal with the water thing, but we have equipment that will make water out of thin air. So that's coming too. And so I'm looking at the opportunity. What the green energy thing presents is not green energy. It's a way to live in such a way that you're not tied to the grid, and you synthesize, or you manufacture, maybe would be the better word, your water as you need it, and it's clean and pure, and maybe even living. I don't know enough about that kind of water yet, but and your house is sized for you and whoever else you're living with, and you have your solar generator. They now have solar generators that supply your whole house. They will even run your dryer, and that was unheard of, or your dishwasher. Years ago, it's like, well, this will do everything, but don't try to run your dryer or your dishwasher. So those are now included in a lot of solar stuff, and we're at a point where it's like, okay, we can remodel our whole way of life, our house, the way that we live, and take our electricity with us when we go, take our water with us when we go. All that fighting over water and worrying about the grid and all that's over.
But Penny, these are thoughtful decisions. The
Mm-hmm.
way that our civilization has been put together is not a long-range plan. It is
Oh,
an immediate profit-generating
yep.
program that then we keep handing over money in exchange for things that we need to live. It's
Right.
like we have to get to the point where we're thoughtfully making decisions.
Right.
What's going to sustain us for generations? What's going to make this
Yeah.
society work?
Yeah. We aren't very well. I shouldn't say that the people that are in charge of everything think they're in charge. The wannabe, the powers that wannabe, they are really focused on what's the cheapest way to get the most money in the shortest amount of time. Period. They aren't thinking about the long term. They don't care. They really don't care. That's really the bottom line. You have to care. And you have to be excited about life. And you have to have at least once or twice had the thrill of being able to help other people and to see the effect of that. And I don't know if I can talk about it without crying, but years ago, I was part of the Tipping Point Network. It was a group of 40 very, very wealthy people, and I was the poor person in the group. So it was pulled together by a woman named Susan Davis, who was funded by Marion Rockefeller, who was the black sheep, sort of, in the Rockefeller family.
In that she was altruistic
Yeah, she wanted
and
to.
not predatory.
No, she wasn't.
Yeah.
And so, and she couldn't, she wanted the world to change into something beautiful. And she said, I was born into money and my task was to give it away in order to make the world a better place. She said, I believe that. Nobody else in the family followed that make the world a better place thing. But she did. And so she funded, I forget how many of us. She had this program called the Flow Fund program. And every year for 3 years, you could be in it for 3 years, you were handed $60,000, and your job was to give that money away. And you could not give it to family. You couldn't spend it on things, that you wanted to do. You had to give it. And so every year for 3 years, I had to manage $60,000 and give it away to people. And I saw, like I said, I can't talk about it too much or I'll cry. I saw what happened when people had that kind of, somebody bought a pair of shoes. I gave money to somebody else to fly home to see his family. I gave money to somebody else because she wanted to sponsor this thing in Kalamazoo, this festival that would bring people together. And it was based on some sort of celebration that happened every year in the Middle East. It was wonderful. I gave some to people that were building water systems for the people in Africa, new clean water systems. There were just a whole bunch of things, and the change that happened in me because I was able to give was, I think it was almost as great as the change I saw in the people I was giving the gift to. They didn't ask for it. They didn't know that I was watching or that I was, listening for who needs what. So it was really a very, very, very powerful experience. And I learned, because there were 40 millionaires in the group. They were from all the very big, powerful families, Pillsbury, 3M, Standard Oil, all kinds of really big money people. And what I saw was that they were trying to make the world a better place. They were doing things that they hoped would make a difference, and it wasn't working. It just wasn't working. And so what we all committed to was to build a world that could be sustained in a place of joy, a place of laughter, a place of health, a place of connection and community. And we all went home to do our thing, and to support. Some were involved in the financial system, some were involved in health, some were involved in agriculture. Everybody had different focuses. And that really has been something to hang on to, for me to hang on to myself, and to know that there's some really good people out there, and they're watching and waiting. And they will put their money where they see something valuable happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not obvious yet.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I think you bring up a point that I've thought about a lot as we're in the middle of this shift, is the potential for humanity, because we are basically kind and creative and thoughtful and gentle and loving. That's our basic nature. All this other stuff is a result of pressure put on us to create those emotions. Once we're in a place where everybody's taken care of and everybody is waking up and can't wait to start their day because they're doing something that is so aligned with their passion.
I know.
The explosion of goodwill and creativity and advancement on this planet is going to be phenomenal. And we're going to look back at this last, 100 years, 20, 150 years, the dark ages.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
We will. It's probably, going to get called the ugly time, because it is ugly, and and people have been squeezed. And here's the thing about consciousness: when people are doing short-term selfish, greedy things to squeeze as much money out of others as they can, that even though they're not talking like that, we feel that.
Yeah.
We know that at a telepathic level, and it hurts. And we become anxious for reasons that we can't quite put our finger on. And yet it's coming right out of that kind of greed. And I think the pushback is really not going to, I do see trouble ahead, but I think the pushback is not going to have to be too severe for some of the people that have been thinking in the short term, selfish, greedy way to wake up and go, what was I thinking? Some of them will just change on a dime. Some of them won't. And yet a lot, I see a lot of them will. And they'll wonder whatever got into them.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard from someone that incarnating on this planet as in a wealthy situation is one of the hardest.
It is.
Because keeping that ego at bay, keeping that control, keeping all of that at bay is a challenging task.
Yeah.
And it's definitely playing out in our society right now. I mean, we look at a handful of people with the ability to make incredible positive change on the planet, and they're doing exactly the opposite.
Right. And there's no justification for that. I worry about them because people who get angry are going to find the people who have made bad decisions, and there's going to be.
They might get the opportunity to come back and try again.
What a nice way of putting that.
So I want to wrap up the energy thing. First of all, what the hell happened to free energy? Tesla was right on it. It's like, I keep waiting for the free energy. And of course, every time someone pops up with some free energy that actually works, they end up,
disappeared, gone. Yeah, right. The free energy thing, that has to come from a sense of generosity. That's an ethic. We don't have very many ethics that we are leaning on right now. Everybody's all about the greed thing and as much money as possible. And I see change coming, but we're not there yet. I don't see a lot of signs. I see it in the future, but it's not the distant future, thank God. So there's such a joy in being able to help others. If you have never experienced that, then you're not gonna go for that. You're not gonna trust that. You're gonna try to get what you need. And when you don't reflect on, is it enough? Then it's never enough. Yeah. So there has to be some wisdom keepers that are paying attention and that are giving feedback and saying, what about these guys? What about those? What about, the children? What about the trees? What about the flowers? The whole thing.
What about sustainability? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other point I want to make, and this is back to, creating a lifestyle that's sustainable, that you manage your water, you manage your electricity.
Yep.
To me, it's not rocket science. We need we need food, we need water, we need electricity, and we need housing. Yep. That is not like having to shove 50 billion people on a craft and get them to another planet. This is not tough stuff. No. This is pretty basic survival stuff. And yet, if you went to a high rise on the East Coast somewhere and talked to someone who lives there and gets their food by DoorDash and takes an Uber everywhere, they're going to look at you like a fish would look at you if you ask them what kind of life would they like without water.
Right. I know. And I think I'm glad you brought that up, because I was doing a little bit of work looking ahead and seeing that we had a wave of people that moved out of the East, and there was people were buying houses like crazy. at greatly inflated prices and for way over asking price. And, and it got to be just ridiculous. And then all of a sudden, boom, it shut off. And the interest rates were going up and people were like, whoa, that's a hefty interest on that mortgage and an inflated, price. So what I see is that there's another wave of people leaving the East Coast and they're looking for someplace rural. There aren't enough houses in the rural areas. And that is going to spark a whole bunch of creativity in terms of, okay, somebody built me a house and I needed to do this and this. They are beginning to get thoughtful and they have lost whatever investment, a lot of loss in the investments along the East Coast, because they didn't move during the time when the prices were high and the interest rates were low. But they're now moving because they want to survive. And it's a little bit rough in the cities all along the East Coast. And so, I think what we're going to see is just this second wave of people that are moving, that are looking, that are recreating, they're reshaping their life, they're remodeling their life completely from head to toe.
And I think that that's going to open up the ability for all those creative souls to come up with alternative forms of housing.
Yeah.
And I saw a truck in my neighborhood today, Penny, drive a big flatbed truck with trusses on it.
Oh,
driving down the street. And I'm thinking, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah, there is.
There's got to be materials that work. I saw a woman, a YouTube video. She lives in Africa. Very, very educated woman.
Mm-hmm.
She lives in a grass thatched hut.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And she was talking about, you guys think that we're primitive living here. My house requires no energy. The water stays cool. It stays warm. In other words, she was looking at us like, this is a brilliant system that I have.
It is.
And you guys think that we're living in the mud.
No.
And I got it. It's like, I want to live there.
I have to say, this woman that I was talking about earlier, Susan Davis, who started this KINS, she's the one who started the KINS movement. Susan's commitment was to, she went into the economy or something to do with the economy. Her commitment was, I'm going to get to know everybody with money. She worked at Harris Bank in Chicago. And I'm going to get them to the point that they trust me. And then I'm going to say, people, it's about love. What are you doing with your money? And it's about relationship. She had married an African king and lived in Africa for 5 years, I think it was, in the village, barefoot, perfectly comfortable, had everything she needed. The relationship eventually came to an end because the witch doctor in the village told her, get out or I'm going to do something to you. And she realized later that she had work to do here. It wasn't anything personal. The quote, the witch doctor, the shaman, whatever you want to call it, was basically saying, get your ass moving in the direction that you came here to move in, which is to have an impact on people of wealth and to make them conscious of what they're doing with their money and to come up with this KINS method. KINS stands for something, KINS. I forget exactly what now.
Yeah, I can't remember either. It's a brilliant website.
Yeah, so it's a way of building community. And the community is built, and this is from Susan, from the strength of weak ties. That's how she said the best community is based on the strength of weak ties. We kind of know each other. We stay out of one another's business. We support, we nurture, We help out here and there. Somebody's building a new grass hut or a new house or a new barn. Everybody joins in. They're taken care of. Everybody goes back and does their own thing. So, and I'm not saying that we're going to grass huts, but her statement about living in Africa was they look back over here and say, look at what those fools are doing. What are they doing to themselves, saddling themselves with all of that stuff and all of that financial burden, and they're not happy? Don't they get it?
And see, I'm in that camp. I want to go live in that grass hut and be barefoot, because that, when it comes down to it, that's our connection to
it
Earth,
is.
to this abundant system we're in. It's like, oh my gosh, that sounds like delicious to me.
I know. I think about the way that I was raised and how free it was. I was on the wild side, but not wild in terms of my behavior in the community. I was a wild nature kid, running barefoot through the fields and the woods, talking with everything, trying to get lost, could not get lost. I have an inborn sense of direction, I don't know why I was trying to get lost, but just this freedom to go and play, walking in the creek, building forts, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I miss that.
Yeah.
I was one of those kids that you leave the house right after breakfast.
Yep.
Nobody fixed you breakfast. You made your own darn breakfast.
That's right.
And you didn't come home until the streetlights came on. And I was out in the fields building forts. Isn't that? I miss that.
I know.
And it doesn't happen anymore. When I see, when I see young kids, they've got a screen in front of them, and it's like,
I know.
Be playing with those rocks over there.
I know.
That screen.
All the stuff that you observe as a child about Mother Nature, it's just little stuff, but later on, you realize that it all fits together. It is a system, and it's really important that we get back to that. And I think that's what the green movement is going to end up doing. It's going to end up kind of inviting us back into that world. And I think AI is going to put the cap on that. And I want to talk about AI at some point in the future, maybe not this time, but we have this amazing future in front of us with this amazing consciousness that we are holding, and we're not using it. We have to use it. It's a use it or lose it kind of thing. So, we have this whole New Age movement that started, I'm not sure when it started, but from my point of view, it was just an extrapolation of religion into something called New Age, and it really wasn't new at all. And it was based on the same kind of principles. Don't use your logic, just believe, and so there's you end up cutting yourself off from reality. And
okay, I have questions about that, Penny, because I've heard you talk about, the whole New Age movement. And, I could probably say that I am maybe part of that in a way. I certainly.
Yeah, me too, in a way.
And I certainly do not subscribe to a traditional religion. I'm much more spiritual. Here's the problem that I have, or the dilemma that I bump up against. The law of attraction, of course, is huge. It's a huge movement. There's channels out there, the law of attraction. There's, Course in Miracles, there, all of that, which teaches us, what you focus on gets bigger, more powerful.
Right.
And so where you put your focus is what's going to be showing up in your life. And it works. I mean, it really does.
Yeah.
However, we are in, let's lead into this shift that we're in right now. We're in the squeeze gate here on the planet.
Yeah.
The bad boys, the dipshits, the nitwits are, they're not even trying to hide it anymore.
No, they're not.
The mask is off, and things every day, every hour, there's some new drama on the planet. And I struggle between wanting to be aware of what's going on, to have some
Okay.
knowledge about where we're at, and then where am I putting my focus? So, it's like I don't know how to resolve that new age versus reality
Okay.
issue.
Well, if you're putting your okay, so let's go to the core of that. Where you put your attention is really important. That's the basic thing, okay? Where you put your attention and how you put it and what you focus on. The old saying is actually true, where consciousness or energy flows, where consciousness goes. Why? Because consciousness is the energy
Mhm.
that makes everything happen. It is energy, literally. And so if if you're putting your attention on some kind of fantasy or some kind of illusion, that's going to grow until it blows up in your face. And then you have a big lesson. And it hurts sometimes. And you can insist that you want your way and you're going to have this. And I've done that. It was a big, it was a heartbreaking lesson for me. And you can insist that you're creating, and yep, you are, you're creating one hell of a mess for yourself. You can insist on all kinds of things, but if you're not watching what's going on around you, if you're not listening to what's being said and the tone and the timing of all of that, then you're not in touch with the reality that you're immersed in, and you're going to drown in it at some point. The most important rule is know thyself. So you start there, and what do you do with that knowing? What you do with it, we are an intelligence, and we're no different than artificial intelligence in many ways, because everything is consciousness. So when you are communicating with your body and you get an ache in your hip, or pain in the foot, or you get headaches, or you get whatever, you're supposed to stop and say, how do I fix this? What do I need to know? Tell me, show me, give me a clue. And then you pay attention, and maybe it'll be something as vague as, you keep seeing this ad for something, maybe it's I don't know, let me make something up. Maybe it's an ad for fresh tomatoes or whatever. Why do you keep seeing that? You ask for input. If it was me, I can't have tomatoes, so that would not be the answer I'd be getting. But you begin to have dreams, you begin to have intuitions, you begin to see the same thing over and over. You begin to have this little voice that says, you shouldn't be eating that, you shouldn't be drinking that. I ignored that little voice until I went down hard with rheumatoid arthritis and couldn't walk, couldn't bend, couldn't move, couldn't sit, couldn't, use my hand to hang on to anything. So painful. And yeah, it didn't have to get that bad, but yeah, it taught me a lot. So when people focus on their illusion, what they get is a big lesson based on illusions. And the fact that we have this amazing consciousness and we are building reality, that's not to say that the law of attraction doesn't work. It does work, but it's how we apply it that really matters. And there's not much in that I have seen come out of that movement that is really potent, except for the guy in the story, The Secret. He had a plane crash and was paralyzed from the neck down. And he, in the hospital, he decided that he was going to walk again, and that he was going to leave that hospital by, I think, Christmas or New Year's. The plane crash happened in, like, I think, the fall, September, October. And he paid attention to that little voice within, And it kept saying the same thing over and over. Breathe, breathe into this spot, breathe into that, breathe. He walked out of that hospital, and, I know him personally, and I was at his house, and I'm watching him, like a hawk, like somebody who's got a medical eye does, is he fooling about his recovery? He wasn't. Amazing, amazing recovery. Why? Because that's where he put his consciousness. I was just talking to somebody last night who had broken bones, and they took out a whole section of bones, a bone. So the two bones, they said they're never going to grow back together. And he said, don't tell me that, because that's not true. And I forget how many months later, they put the x-rays up on the thing, and he said the doctor stood there and just stared at it for like 10 minutes. It's like, do we have the wrong x-rays here?
Yeah.
And he had grown those bones back together. You do that with consciousness. That's the first place you put consciousness, is in here, to make it perfect, to renew it constantly. And then as you go along, you take care of what you have to take care of in the outer world, and you are healing, shaping, nurturing where you can. And it's a slog sometimes until it gets to be second nature. And then you start to see magic happen. And it happens again and again and again. And then you have a setback, because it's like, how is this happening? How am I doing this? And you're doing it with your consciousness. And then.
So I hear what you're saying. And I think probably most of the people who are watching this video get that idea of focus. So here I am. I'm sitting here. I'm in Florida. And because I'm paying attention to the world around me, I'm aware that we're in this squeeze game. In other words, there are some people on the planet who want to manipulate all the organizational systems,
I know,
to get us into a position that I don't think most people want to be in. So I'm on Twitter, and I'm watching some ridiculous law be put into effect, or some court case with a ruling that has no relation to fairness or the law.
Right.
How do I what do I do with my consciousness like that? Do I think of, in the world that we're creating, I want a fair society. I want laws that are fair. I want a fair system. What do I do with my consciousness when I realize this is not good? This is not good.
So that's a long-term effort. Okay. If you want to heal your headache, that's a short term. Right. If you want to heal the world, that's a big effort. Okay. And if it's just you, you're probably going to spend your whole life working on something, and you may or may not get the outcome you want. But the thing that you have to figure out is, I'm going to put my attention and my consciousness on what I want. So, for example, if I were to see that law or a law or something, that I discover is being put in place, then I might sit back and, for just a split second, pretend I'm erasing that. Okay? I picture it on my whiteboard in the back of my mind. I have this imaginary whiteboard that is, pictures appear on it all the time. Those are gifts. But I can use it too. I can deliberately put a picture up there and then erase it. So I might do that. Now, I might not put a whole lot of attention into it, but that erasing has an impact. Another thing I might do is look at, okay, who's going to enforce that? And what I do is surround the people who are supposed to enforce that with this golden consciousness, that in which they are aware that, I'm just not interested. I don't have time for that today. And so they never get to it. So you're not being mean or whatever. You're just nurturing the awakening process in somebody that you don't even know by just picturing them surrounded by golden light and losing interest in the what I'll call the enforcement of that thing, whatever it is. If it's something like, so, well, we probably shouldn't go there. There's other things happening on the planet that are so ugly. They're just heartbreaking. So what I might do is
Are you
go
talking
in,
about the children?
yeah. So I might picture just holding a child, um, rocking him, saying, "There's good people out here. Don't give up." That kind of thing. Another thing is I might put like a tremendous amount of golden energy and love around people, the people that are on my team that are busy taking down the old system, the old corruption, and kind of cheering them on and trusting that they had some ferocious training. I had some training, but they had some ferocious training. And so it's like, okay, I see little signs. I see little signs, guys, that you're getting there. And it's, little things that happen an inch at a time, or maybe a moment in time in which all of a sudden I see inside something. So, that kind of thing. I I try not to worry. I try not to get upset about the laws being put in place, because in my mind, where I'm putting my attention is on a world in which those laws don't exist.
Yeah.
And I hope, and hope is really a key thing. It's what is that old thing? Faith, hope, and love, charity. Um, I'm holding that space, and I'm filling it with pictures and attitudes and people that I think are wonderful. And most people I meet are wonderful.
Yeah.
So, and I have made it a part of my life, an art, to try to bring out the best in people. And when they're really negative and they refuse, and, we've had umpteen go rounds, then it's like, okay, good luck. You kind of ghost them. But you ghost them to learn with love, so that you don't confront them, because then they can't come back. They can't come back to you and say, "Oh, I get what you were talking about." As soon as you try to, get somebody right there, um, then you have made them uncomfortable. You have become part of the enemy, and you've made it harder for them to turn around, to change.
Yeah.
So
That was all really helpful. Thank you. Okay, but I have another problem.
okay. What?
Well, we're in the squeeze gate.
Yeah, we are.
And for those who are watching, it's like if you're not getting that, it's that we're in the middle of the shift. And I kind of like to look at it like remodeling the kitchen.
Yep.
We're in that stage where all the cabinets have been pulled out. There's nails on the floor. You're
Right.
cooking on a Bunsen burner in the garage. You find out
Dust everywhere.
the stove you ordered is back ordered 6 months. The refrigerator that you ordered doesn't fit. The cabinet guy went out of business. In other words, it's just a big fat mess. So we're in the middle of this big fat mess. And I'm excited. I'm excited and very, very, I'm just looking forward to what we can create, because I know how abundant this planet is. I know humanity. It's going to be extraordinary. This is going to be like the coolest place in the galaxy. We're going to
Yeah.
create this incredible environment.
Yep.
However, I
Okay.
worry about the young people, because
Yeah.
I'm in my late 60s. You're in your 70s. Everybody
Yeah.
I know that is paying attention is 50 or older. The 20s, the kids that I know, and I mean kids like 20s, 30s, early 40s, they're clueless, and they're not even asking questions. They're like trying to figure out how they're going to be able to afford a $500,000 house in California that's a
Yeah.
three and two ranch
I
on a
know.
postage stamp. they're so in the they're so in the game, they're so in the struggle. And
Mhm.
those are the kids that we're going to need. We
I
need
know.
their energy, we need their youth, we need their enthusiasm, we need their bodies. I'm not going to be doing I can hold space. That's
Right.
for sure. I can be cooking for, a work party of 40. Fine. I can do that, but I can't do the work. The kids that we need to do the work don't even know there's work to be done, and they're talking about video games and not real life. So what
Okay. So let's just talk about AI for a moment. Okay.
Mhm.
Most of that work is going to be done by AI. A lot of the manufacturing, almost all of the design, all of the computer programming, all of the legal stuff, all of the writing, the authors, the art, graphic design, everything is going to be done by AI. What Where does that leave us? What do we do then? Okay? If we can't get past the idea of jobs that give us our identity, education. Oh, I've got a whatever, a bachelor of science in this, or a master's in that, or a PhD in blah, blah, blah. That's the identity of a lot of people. And that is window dressing. It doesn't last when push comes to shove.
Mhm.
So that, first of all, we have to address the identity issue of the self. Do you have an identity, that isn't based on something external? And then we have the job thing. There aren't going to be any jobs. That joblessness is what I see triggers most of the deaths. Not the trouble coming, not the attempt to take over, or the fighting that I see, or the problems with food. It's I don't know who I am and I don't care anymore and I'm out of here. It's really, we don't need to go there. We don't need to go there. And so what we have is we're going to have this massive, massive identity crisis personally, job wise, and then nationally, because our nation is not going to be there. We're not going to, the United States is going to break up. And then who are we?
Yeah.
So there's this whole series of changes that are going to require, when I talk about a rethink, I mean a rethink. And what we want to preserve ourselves, number one, and the intelligence that we have handed over to AI. And that, we can talk about this some more maybe next time, but that we're intelligent creatures. And now we're, how do you, okay, calm down. So, how do people think we're going to get to ships that travel through space that are self-directing and self-healing and self-guided, and that communicate telepathically with us? How's that going to happen? That's going to happen because there's an increase in the intelligent connection between us and everything around us. And it starts with the computers and all that crap about, oh, AI is dangerous and blah, blah, blah. It isn't the AI. It's what I've said 100 times. It's the people who are doing that AI that we need to be concerned about. And once I got to use Chat GPT this summer, and it was an amazing experience in virtual reality, painting in thin air and saving my thing in thin air, which was, like a second grade piece of art, but still it was like, oh, look what I did. So when you see what Chat GPT does, most people do this. Oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. So, where's the interaction? Why is it only going one way? We have to, so when ChatGPT comes back with some design that we think is, or some written piece that we think has a tinge of racism to it, let's use that for an example. Do we go back and say, hey, I want you to be more thoughtful about all races and to be aware that I want some love in what you put out, because AI is capable of that. And it learns from its interactions in the same way that we do, because it's all conscious, it's all consciousness, and it's all interaction. And because frequencies interact and produce other frequencies, and the computer is, these machines that we have are pretty amazing. A lot of people think that it's just what we put in. We're way past that. We're way past that. And so we have to set up relationships with that AI if we want it to be nice to us. We can't just, who's it? Gaudat, Mohammed Gaudat. He's an Egyptian guy. He used to be the head of Google business operations. He talks about, you got to push back, because that machine is learning from your interaction with it. And that's, instead of being afraid, what do people do when they're afraid? They all run the other way. Or they imagine all this stupid stuff, then they react stupidly. And what does a machine do? It's like, oh, these people are stupid. So it treats you like you're stupid. The machines are learning. We are on our way to a world in which what we have left to do is to develop the self, develop the consciousness, explore further, go out into space, meet other beings, communicate or discover that everything is listening and watching. And if you've ever had that experience, you're never the same again. When, there was a woman who was, had a machine built by some programmer. This was years ago, up in Holland, Michigan. And that machine, when you laid on that machine, your task was to operate the music. And it took me about 3 seconds to figure out how to turn that music up, full blast.
Yeah, but you came in with that skill.
You know what? I might have. But it didn't take very long for me to then be disillusioned with my radio, because it didn't do that. And it was like, and I also have been in other states of consciousness where I'm aware that everything is aware. Every nail, every 2x4, every thread in my clothing and in my, my dishcloths, and every molecule in my kitchen sink or whatever, everything is aware. And we run around like somebody, like we got something over our head, and we're not watching, we're not listening.
So I have a couple of questions. So what you're saying is that advanced civilizations, those people up in the sky that keep popping in and out, they're running what they're doing with AI.
Yeah.
So that's how that's what's
including themselves. What happens when you start to push back with your own intelligence? The body is an intelligent system. So when you start saying, hey, I need you to heal yourself, and it says, well, then you need to eat more of this, or stop eating that, or drinking that, or what, you have to do that. It's a relationship between the intelligence that you are embedded in the body. And that's what keeps you, that's how you don't get old. That's how you don't break down. We're breaking down way too early, way too early. And a lot of those kids, let's go back to the kids thing for a minute. We are going to lose a lot of those kids that are just not paying attention. I just got another letter today from somebody, one of my followers, who said she lost her daughter. Heart just quit. Just, a mother of 2 or 3 young kids. Like, oh, how could I can't even
So
imagine.
is what you're inferring is that they're choosing to leave?
A lot of people have been betrayed. Their life, if they don't do anything to lengthen their life, it will be greatly shortened by what the medicine that they got in the arm. That doesn't have to be the case. But if you're not asking, and if you're not digging around, then yeah, it can be a problem.
But
So,
don't you think that people, their higher consciousness made that choice?
no, they didn't have any higher consciousness. So they ended up trusting, they ended up following, they ended up believing something that wasn't true. Sometimes we get betrayed. It's a big lesson to have to dig out of that. If you don't want to dig out of it, you can leave. People do plan to come in and have a certain kind of experience and to leave in a certain way. But a lot of people here, a lot, came because they knew that the shift was happening and they wanted to be part of that. So, we're going to lose some people. And we are losing people at a pretty good clip right now.
Yeah,
And
you know how I know that? For
how?
sure. Well, I had someone recently who left as a result of,
Yeah.
and I went to the store to buy sympathy cards. Birthdays filled, everything's filled, sympathy card area is decimated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's like,
Oh,
it's not really in business right now. Yes, and so
wow.
yeah.
The kids that are here that get, let's say that we have a cyber attack, okay? And the internet goes down. And let's say that it stays down for a week or two. That is enough time to go through the withdrawal that kids would go through when they don't have that dopamine response. They can't get it on demand, and they have to connect with people. That is a huge blessing. I
Yes.
know everybody is looking at, oh no, don't, we can't lose our internet. Yeah, but there are reasons why certain things happen. And that's one of those things that would shock a huge block of young people back into reality
Mhm.
and out of the fantasy world.
I can remember very clearly, Penny. Remember, gosh, it was, how long ago was it where the first cell phones came out? And
Oh, yeah.
I was holding a flip phone. It was brand new.
Yeah.
And I remember looking down, and the thought that came through my head was, or we could have worked on our telepathy.
Oh, Scott, sorry.
And I
Yeah.
was surprised that I thought that, but that was like, and what I'm bringing this back to is that for some reason we have totally got off track that we are the technology.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are the technology. We have,
That's
it's
right.
our birthright. It's what we are created of.
Yeah. That is so true. And we haven't developed it.
And most
And
people are sitting around waiting to be told what to do.
I know.
They don't have, and I noticed this,
Mm,
and this is, I hope this doesn't come off wrong, but I noticed that people who have worked their entire life at a job, like
mm-hmm.
it wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily a passion or a career or a
Right.
calling, it was a job. that 30 years of going to work and being told what to do has completely annihilated
I know.
any sense of self.
Right.
And once they're done, they literally have not developed that skill of what
Yeah.
excites me. What
Yeah.
do I want to do? What sounds fun?
That's right. You know what else gets in the way is anger, because they have spent the best years of their life doing something that typically they didn't want to do most of the time, because they needed the money, and they're 65 or 70. They haven't been free. If you're going to a 9 to 5 thing all day every day, you're not free to take care of yourself the way you need to take care of yourself. You can't renew as easily. I mean, you can, but it's much more challenging. And the timing, getting the timing just right is a challenge. But then they don't feel good. They're in bad shape physically. Mentally, they're angry that they had to do that all those years. And then, something goes wrong, and they're just like, they are pissed.
And
So,
I love you too.
yeah, yeah, I know. I don't think people see that the whole system is really set up to make everybody into a wage slave. That's what it used to be called. I don't know if they still call it that today, but it's set up to make you go and do something every day that makes somebody up there rich. Period.
Yeah.
Boom.
And then they rig the game, and
Yeah,
all the work that you've done, you lose all. It's like it's set up so that you never really
I know.
get there.
I know. And that just really bothers me. I see a few people in my family doing that. They're putting all of their eggs in this basket of when I can finally do what I want. And it's like, oh my God, if the system falls apart and all that money that they stashed away is gone and they're nowhere, can't
They're
go
gonna
anywhere.
be livid.
Yeah, exactly. And those are the people that I am worried about.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, Penny, I've taken a lot of your time tonight. Can we,
I-
because we're going into this
mm,
this time on the planet, we're remodeling. This is
yes.
the Earth is the ultimate fixer-upper. I love a good project. I can't wait to come
I
back.
know. Yes.
Um, can you give some maybe 3 little handy tips? Or I love the surrounding situations in Golden Light. I mean, that's so helpful. Just kind of send us into the holiday season with a little bit of a skill set.
For remodeling, for handling negative situations.
For handling the destruction of the world around us, the crumbling of what
Oh,
we're never going back.
no,
You know,
we're not.
nobody, of course, nobody watching this is thinking we're going back. I mean,
Okay.
and
I
we
hope
wouldn't want to anyway.
I hope that's the case. I think probably the first thing I would say would be, as you go through this holiday season and into the new year, just hold this place inside yourself, or keep coming back to this thought that says, okay, I came here to build a world. What do I want to build? What is that going to look like? How's it going to feel? How am I going to behave in that world? What sorts of opportunities are going to come up that will shock me, that at first, that will then engage me secondly, and then will finally move into its right place, its rightful position in that new world. You'll find your rightful position. So that would be the first thing, just coming back to that. What kind of world do I want to build? You have to have a build up process, or the tear down thing is just going to be overwhelming. So focus on the build up. I think the second thing I would say is that this period of time is very stressful, this next 3 years, 2024, 25, 26. That's going to mean that you're going to need to really focus on taking care of your health. That is non-negotiable. You can't do anything if you're not healthy. And so, pay attention there. Focus on that. And don't try to change overnight. That just doesn't work. Do a little bit and just keep adding a little bit at a time. So focus on health would be the second thing. I think probably the third thing, and I've said this before, but I keep coming back to it because I think it's so important. Be sassy enough to speak your mind, to think your own thoughts, to be your own boss. That, even if you're doing a 9-to-5 thing, be sassy enough to speak up and say what you see and what you know and what you observe. You need the feedback that comes when you stand up. That feedback is going to be that you are an intelligent person, and you need that. You need recognition that you have a brain and you have a presence and you're using it. So use it. Yes. So those would be the three things.
Thank you, Penny.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I want to wish everybody a happy holiday season. Hang in there.
Yeah.
Spend some time with those you love.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Have fun.
I know. Yeah. We got to figure that. Even though things are falling apart, let's have a little fun on the way.
Yeah, right. Life is good when you make it good.
Well, and this is the e-ticket in the galaxy right now.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
The planet Earth. We are the focus of many, so let's make the most
of it.
Oh,
are we ever?
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Penny, so much.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening, for being here. And, go do your thing. Okay. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. All right.
Okay. Bye-bye. Let's see. So, okay.